I want to talk health care and not only why the original bill in the House was pulled because it was destined for failure, but the current state of the Obamacare repeal. And you said something to me that I've asked a couple of folks when we were talking, I think the morning of the vote, or what turned out to be the not vote.
Right.
And you said that Speaker Ryan had spoken to you maybe the day before. And maybe even the president said this himself as they were trying to persuade you. It was, we know this isn't the best bill, but. And I was thinking at the time, and have really thought hard about it since. This is important stuff. How were they going to, why were they going to send to you and the other members of the House a bill that wasn't the best stuff?
I really wish I had an answer to that question. I think there was an intense amount of pressure that had been built through the election cycle and up to the time that we were beginning, the 115th Congress, that we just had to get health care repeal done quickly, right out of the gates. And I think there's a lot of regret, a lot of lessons that have been learned by everybody, from the White House to leadership to the rank and file in the Congress, since that effort was pulled. I think that was the right decision, as you know. And I think that we're going to do it better. I think part of the problem is, for 8 years, we voted no on everything. We were not the ruling party, right? We were not the party in charge. And now we are. And our team sort of forgotten how to do it, I think. And of course, the president had never been in the legislative arena before, never been in politics as an elected official. So there was a lot of growing pains, a lot of figuring this out, what the process and how the procedure should work. And I think we've done that now. And look, I'm very optimistic when we go back on Monday, that we're going to get a vote on a vastly improved health care bill, repeal and reform, replace bill, and I think we're going to be better for it in the end.
There's a story that Truman told about Eisenhower in 52, after the Eisenhower election, and Eisenhower going from the military to the Oval Office. And the Truman line, and I'm getting it close but not exact, wait till General Eisenhower gets into the Oval Office and orders that something happen, and 6 months later, it hasn't happened. Because that's the way D.C. works.
Right.
Is President Trump finding that out? How is he adjusting?
I think he is. I am greatly comforted. Speaking of Eisenhower, I think we've got the best cabinet since the Eisenhower era. I think there's some great advisors and people in the cabinet and around him that do know the process, do know the procedure, and want to cut through a lot of the red tape, which the president is big on, as you know. And I think he's learned a little bit about the reality of D.C., that things don't move as quickly as we want. We're all frustrated by that. But sometimes you have to be deliberate about it. The health care repeal and replacement, this piece of legislation affects about 1/6 of the U.S. economy. And as I told the president during that last day, that very intense Thursday where we were going to vote that afternoon, I was the one of a few members going to the speaker saying, pull the bill. We don't have the votes. Let's not have it go down in flames. Let's go back to the drawing board and fix this thing, which I think we are. But it's the details really matter on this, right? And the president's sometimes at 40,000 feet. He just wants a win. He wants to move the agenda. We all do, but we have to do it the right way. The worst reality would be to change it and have the Republican Party own the repeal and replacement, which is worse.
So what's the status? Because the media zeitgeist, the media consensus for a while after the bill was pulled was, it won't happen in 2017. It may never happen. We're stuck with Obamacare. But lately, the last 2 weeks or so, another bill is in the offing.
I'm one of 3 members of Congress who is trying to work out this compromise. We have an amendment called the Palmer-Schweikert Amendment. Not Johnson's name's not on it because you only used 2 names. I would have been a third. But we've taken a model from the state of Maine, without getting into the weeds because it'll take too long. They figured out how to decrease premiums for everybody to make it go down. What they did was they took the top 4 to 6% of patients who have cancer and chronic illnesses. That's what drives the cost up. They moved them over into a high-risk pool. The state subsidized their premiums.
Pardon me,
everybody else went down.
Is it you can the pre-existing condition thing?
Right.
And wanting people to be covered, you can call that a lot of things,
right?
But it's not insurance.
It's not, and it violates the very principle of insurance. But the reality is that's where we are now. Like, you and I would agree that it should not have been put into the overall health plan, but it was, and Americans like it a whole lot, and the president does as well. So we have to make that a facet of the legislation going forward. The only way to do that is to put persons in a high-risk pool that have those pre-existing conditions, so they still can have insurance that's affordable. The state is subsidizing it. I don't like subsidies, but that's the reality of the marketplace where we are now. What happens, though, when you move those people out, the 95% of the rest of the population's premiums go down, and what happened in Maine, more people get insurance. So it makes the market work again. It introduces competition and free market principles in spite of insuring those with pre-existing conditions. And it works. It's not a theory. It's actually works. So Wisconsin did a version, a couple other states. We've got an amendment that puts that into the AHCA, the American Health Care Act, and some other modifications that's going to make it a dual.
No doubt you floated trial balloons with other legislators. You know that the Dems are going to go, no chance.
They're not going to help, but we don't need them. I think we'll get the votes, and I think it'll happen in the next couple of weeks, Robert, and we're going to send it to the Senate, and then ultimately it gets to the president's desk, and then we can move on to tax reform, which is going to be huge.